A great sci-fi action franchise makes its triumphant cinematic return as we take a ride down the Fury Road. Next, on your reviews. All right, guys. A few weeks ago, I put out my Mad Max 2, the Road Warrior review, and you guys know me and just how much I enjoyed that film. So you can imagine how excited I was in 2015 for Mad Max Fury Road. With Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy playing that Mel Gibson character. I actually went and saw this theatrically with my good friend David. Shout out to you, buddy. Um, this movie, for the most part, did not disappoint. Really appreciated it. As far as plot, there's not a whole lot there. It's like most other Mad Max movies, and it's a chase movie. You've got Immortan Joe, and he runs everything back at the Citadel, and his Imperator is Furiosa, played by the great Charlize Theron, and she is leading this group of war boys to Gas Town to bring back, thousands of gallons worth of gas. And instead, she ends up taking a detour, and it turns out she's got these stowaways, the six wives of Immortan Joe. He's basically just using as breeders. And so it becomes all about that. In the meantime, you've got Max, and there's this great opening shot of him. It kind of reminds me of that shot of him and the gyro pilot overlooking that refinery, across that desert bed. Well, there's this great epic shot of him just before these goons come after him. And so he gets captured and sent to the Citadel and put in their jail. And he's used basically as a blood bag uh, for Nux, played by Nicholas Holt. And I really liked him. This is the first movie I've seen him in. I really appreciated him in this. And I also liked him in Renfield that came out earlier this year. But Joe gets word that Furiosa's turned on him. And so the chase is on. And of course, they bring Max along because he's the blood bag. There's this great chase scene, and eventually all these paths collide, and that's basically Mad Max Fury Road. So what I like about this movie, man, the Australian desert just seems so foreign to me, and I love all the locations they choose to shoot on, and I love just the artwork in this movie. Every shot of this movie is just gorgeous. Even though, it's just barren desert, they make it look, through filters and other techniques they use there. They just made this place look otherworldly. And I really appreciate the setting of this movie. I think I actually like this setting wise a little bit more than The Road Warrior. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Me and the guys over at Macho Movie Madness are going to do Mad Max Fury Road against The Road Warrior in a head to head in a versus because I got on some forums and some people actually think this movie is better than the original Road Warrior. And I hadn't really thought about it until I read that, and I'm like, huh, I wonder if it is. They're so close to me. Um, it's hard to say which one I'd put over the other one. I really like the original. I think the pacing uh, in the Road Warrior is probably a little better than this movie, which to me this seems like it runs about 15 minutes too long. And Tom Hardy for me, he was an it guy in Hollywood there for a little bit after that Dark Knight movie that he did with Christian Bale where he played Bane. But I've never really got on the Tom Hardy bandwagon. He was okay in Lawless. Uh, this movie, he does just enough. I don't dislike him in this movie, but to me, he doesn't have that presence that Mel Gibson has. And that leads me to the other thing. He feels secondary to Furiosa, which there's going to be a new Furiosa movie come out next year, I think in May of 2024. But it honestly feels to me like this was kind of the Furiosa movie. This was more about her than it was him freeing these girls from captivity. So that would be sort of a con to me. It's called Mad Max, but it doesn't really feel like it's about Max so much in this movie. The other thing about this movie is there is overt feminism in this movie, and that's okay. To me, that's kind of refreshing in a misogynistic movie franchise like Mad Max, where the women are treated as cattle, as breeders. You've got Furiosa, who's kind of the lead character, co-lead character in this movie, and she's saving, Joe's wives from slavery, from being breeders, and I'm fine with that. You can have both of those, but then in the third act of the movie, they bring in the old mothers, and now they're just hammering us over the head with it. It's a little too heavy-handed for me. I know some other people have said the same thing about this movie, and I'm not, against feminism or anything. Sarah Connor is one of my favorite heroines of all time. Ellen Ripley. I like, Furiosa, I'd put right there with them. I think maybe there was just a little bit too much of it in this movie for a Mad Max movie. But man, there was a lot of great action in this movie. A lot of great chases in this, as there was in The Road Warrior. I'm not sure which one I like more action for action. Possibly The Road Warrior, just because a lot of this seemed CGI'd where that was done practically, but I do appreciate the action, even though some of it was a little ham-fisted. The guys on the poles 30 feet in the air throwing the bombs, and the one guy, I love guitar, but the one guy who's constantly playing guitar, the blind guy. And as far as action, there were some gruesome deaths in this thing. The death of Immortan Joe, where she puts that hook on his mask and he gets caught up in the spokes and it rips his face off. That's just brutal. The other scene I really like in this movie is the big sandstorm, there toward the end of the first act of the movie that comes in. You see them racing across the desert toward this thing. There's lightning in the clouds. That's just gorgeous, man. So many gorgeous shots in this movie, whether it's that or them driving at sunset. I thought there were a couple misses in this movie, but man, the hits in this movie just were amazing. And like I said, I like the character of Nux played by Nicholas Holt, and I like how that character had a redemption arc, where he's just this war boy. I hadn't really talked much about them in this review, and they're just mindless zombie followers pretty much to Immortan Joe. And I liked his redemption arc there. When he turns good and helps take Joe down. Nathan Jones, the former pro wrestler in the WWE, he plays Rictus, and I love that character. He's a little simple. I had a baby brother, and he was perfect in every way. I really got a kick out of that character. But I like the sound design in this movie. I like the score for the most part. There's one part of the score that's kind of like this descending sounding thing that they have going on during the chases that I wasn't the biggest fan of. But for the most part, I did enjoy the score. The direction by George Miller is just amazing, especially after so many years between the Road Warrior and this. I guess there was Beyond Thunderdome in the middle, but the less we talk about that, the better. But overall, I really enjoy the story, the setting, the acting, the action, the cinematography in this movie. So much to like about Mad Max Fury Road. Now, do I like it as much as The Road Warrior? That's the question. Um, I think I'm probably leaning toward that original just a little bit. But as far as an overall score, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. I think this is a really good movie. It's probably my favorite movie of 2015. I've yet to do that ranking, so there's a little spoiler for you there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Mad Max Fury Road down in the comments. Am I right about the overt feminism? Am I right about Tom Hardy, and not being quite up to playing Max as like Mel Gibson was in this role? Let me know your thoughts on all those guys. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, I'm Andrew, and I'll see you down the line.